The United States is not just warning Iran any longer. It is now stopping Iranian ships on their way to the ports. It is disabling their engines. It is clearing mines from the most important maritime corridor in the entire world. And it is doing all of this while much of the world is still speaking in language of pressure, of negotiations, and of signals. And the question now is no longer only what was on the broad Iranian vessel. What did they have on board that was seized? The real question now is whether we are looking at another naval incident or at the next stage in a much broader American effort to dry up, choke off, and neutralize Iran's ability to rebuild its war machine. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your ground report. And tonight, we are going to break down a story that many people saw in the headlines, but very few actually understood. What exactly happened with the Iranian vessel Tuska? Why American forces fired specifically at its engine room? What this tells us about Washington's new phase of pressure on Iran, and how all of this connects to the bigger question, which is the United States preparing a ground invasion to the reality in which, if Iran does not back down, Israel may once again have to act on its own or with the Americans. We'll see what happens. To understand this event, we first need to understand where it happened. The Strait of Hormuz is not just another waterway. It is one of the world's most critical choke points. A massive portion of the global oil and the gas moves through this narrow corridor. Whoever can threaten Hormuz is not only threatening the neighboring countries, they are threatening the energy markets, the fuel prices, the supply chains, and the global economy itself. Iran has understood that for years they have this ability. And that's why Hormuz is not just geography, it's leverage. And now comes the new phase. According to the official American military announcement, the United States began enforcing a naval blockade on vessels entering and leaving the Iranian ports. It's important to be precise here. Washington did not declare that every ship moving through Hormuz would be stopped. What it said is that vessels moving into or out of Iranian ports would be subjected to enforcement. And at the same time, the United States also announced that it had begun clearing mines from the strait, including through the use of additional forces and unmanned underwater systems. That's pretty cool. That means that the American operation now has two lines working together. One is designed to choke Iran's ability to use the sea. The other is meant to reopen a secure maritime lane for global commerce without allowing Tehran to dictate the rules. And now, to the Tuska. According to the official account, the Iranian flagged cargo vessel was intercepted while moving at a speed towards the Bandar Abbas area. And the United States stopped it and warned that it repeatedly received announcements and warnings over the course of 6 full hours and informed it that it was violating the blockade. When the crew refused to comply, the American forces ordered the engine room evacuated and then fired several precise rounds into it in order to disable the propulsion. And after that, the United States Marines boarded the ship and took it into American custody. That's a very important detail. This was not a random exchange at sea. This was a controlled disabling operation followed by boarding. And according to the same announcement, since the blockade began, the United States forces have already ordered at least 25 commercial vessels either to turn around or to return to the Iranian ports. So this is not a one-off thing. This is enforcement. And this is where two mistakes must be avoided. The first mistake is to say that this was just another Iranian cargo vessel trying to challenge the blockade. And then the second mistake is to jump too far and say, America just captured a ship carrying nuclear weapons component. As of right now, There has been no official American public discourse of what exactly was found on board that ship, but there are several layers of information that makes this ship far more significant than just an ordinary commercial vessel. The Tuska is an Iranian container ship, not an oil tanker. Public ship registries described it as a large Iranian flagged container vessel, almost 900 feet long. According to open maritime tracking and sanctions-related records, the vessel is linked to an Iranian shipping ecosystem tied to the IRISL, the Islamic Republic of Iran shipping lanes. And that matters because IRISL is not viewed by Washington as a normal national shipping company. For years, the United States has accused IRISL and affiliated entities of providing logistical services to Iran's defensive military industry. Now let's dig deeper. What the United States is trying to do here is not just to punish Iran. It is trying to degrade Iran's ability to recover. This is after rounds of strikes, after damage to the military infrastructures, the facilities, after attrition on parts of the missile and logistical networks, that the key question for Washington is not only what Iran can launch tomorrow morning. The question is how Iran rebuilds a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. And from the American point of view, the answer runs through the sea, through money, through shipping, through components, dual-use cargo, and smuggling patterns. That's also why the recent American sanctions have repeatedly expanded beyond oil alone. The target is not just petroleum revenue. It is the wider network that supports ballistic missile development, drone capabilities, and advanced military procurement. When you place the Tuska inside that broader picture, it stops looking like a single ship and starts looking like one link of the supply chain that Washington wants to break. And now, here is another layer that is raising eyebrows amongst all the analysts. Recent reporting indicates that the Tuska repeatedly called at Chinese ports, and maritime analysts flagged movement patterns that suggest high-risk logistical behavior. That does not mean that China owns the vessel. It does mean that anyone trying to understand how Iran survives the sanctions cannot look only at Tehran. They must also look at a wider logistical web. Shell companies, port calls, cargo transfers, infrastructures, flags, and also the disabled transporters, and the gray zone between legal trade and illicit supply. Now let's talk about the mines. This part of the story is just as important because the United States Central Command announced that it had begun a mission to establish a new safe passage in the Strait of Hormuz after mines attributed to Iran threatened the maritime traffic. The official language stated that American destroyers were already operating there and that additional systems, including unmanned underwater vehicles, would support the effort. That means that the United States is not only responding to a threat, it's moving into the space and reshaping the rules themselves. And we will remove this threat. We will reopen the lane, and we will decide what can pass and under what conditions. That is no longer just deterrence, that's control. And that may be the most important point of this entire story. For years, the United States spoke about freedom of navigation, regional stability, deterrence, and now it is taking a further step. It is linking the maritime arena directly to Iran's ability to rearm, recover, and reconstitute its strategic threat. From Washington's perspective, if Iran can continue to use the sea to move money, components, and also supply into its systems, then the threat has not really been stopped. It has only been delayed. So when people ask whether Israel may soon face another round against Iran, we have to avoid dramatic gestures, but also we cannot afford to be naive. As of now, there is no confirmed public basis for saying that a new Israeli strike is actually scheduled specifically in the coming month or so. There is no solid ground for naming a date, but there is certainty enough to say that the ceasefire remains extremely fragile, that future diplomacy with Iran is under enormous pressure, and that these American actions at sea significantly raise the potential for escalation if Tehran chooses to respond. In such a reality, Israel could find itself pulled back into the equation very quickly, even if it does not initiate the first move, because in the end, this is the real story. Not just a ship, not just a blockade, not just Trump. This is an American effort to tell Iran, you will not rebuild. We invite you to take part now in something real, something that is rooted in the land and in our hearts. The Rebuild Israel campaign continues, bringing life back to Israel's north. Along Israel's northern border, an area marked by war, displacement, and loss, we are planting an apple orchard, not as a symbol for a single moment, but as part of a long-term commitment to rebuild what was damaged. This orchard is more than agriculture. It creates jobs for local families, it helps communities return and rebuild, and it sends a clear message to the people of Israel. You are not alone. When you donate, you're not just giving, you're rebuilding. Your support puts trees in the ground, restores livelihoods, transforms the land that is scarred by war into a land that grows again. This is how renewal takes root. This is how Israel rebuilds after war. Join us in restoring the North and strengthening the future of the land of Israel. Go now to tbn.org/rebuildisrael or call 800-804-7895. Again, that's 800-804-7895. Rebuild the land, restore hope, bless the future. If you value the way that we break down complex stories here and pull out the deeper picture that many others miss, this is the moment to pause for just a second, like this video, subscribe to the channel TBN Israel on YouTube, and share this report with others who need to understand what's really happening in the Middle East. You can also leave us a super thank you on YouTube, donate, and help us share the truth. Now, let's touch one more point that many people are missing. The United States is acting here not only against Iran, but also in front of the whole world, in front of Beijing, where parts of these trade patterns intersect. If America truly intends to shut down the maritime arteries that give the regime oxygen, that serves Israel's interests directly. And if it fails, or if Iran finds a way to reopen or bypass those channels, then the clock may begin ticking again in Jerusalem as well. In that sense, the Tuska is a test for Iran, whether it observes the humiliation or response, a test for the United States, whether it is satisfied with the inspection and signaling or expands the enforcement, and a test for Israel, whether it is standing at the edge of a period in which every quiet moment is only a short window before another round. So anyone who looks only at the hole in the engine room is missing the larger picture. The hole is not the story. The story is that the United States is trying to punch a hole in the system that allows Iran to breathe, rearm, and recover through the sea. And if that is truly the direction, then we are not looking at the end of this crisis. We are looking at a new phase. A real question now is not whether Iran was humiliated, but how it will choose to respond once it understands that the United States is no longer only striking targets, it's also seizing the pipelines that keep the regime alive. And the bigger question for the next episode is this: if Washington is truly tightening the net around Iran at sea, will Tehran's next move come at the negotiating table or in the first missile that pulls Israel back into the next round? Let me know what you think about this. But in the meanwhile, keep praying for the situation, for wisdom to our leaders. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, this city right here behind this window, and help us by sharing the truth, hitting the like, share, and the subscribe buttons on TBN Israel. We'll see you next time.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.